I will call this meeting to order, and I will swear in all our new members en masse. If you would stand up and raise your right hand and repeat after me. I do solemnly swear
I do solemnly swear
that I will support, honor, protect,
I will support, honor, protect,
and defend the Constitution
and defend the Constitution
and government
and government
of the United
of
States
the United States
and of the state of Florida,
and the state of Florida,
that I am duly qualified
that I am duly qualified
to hold office
to hold office
under the Constitution
under the Constitution
of the state
of the state
and under the charter
and under the charter
of the city of Vero Beach,
of the city of Vero Beach,
and that I will well and faithfully perform
that I will and faithfully perform
the duties of High-Speed Rail Commission member,
the duties of High-Speed Rail Commission member,
of which I am now about to enter.
which I am now about to enter.
So help me God.
So help me God. Help me God.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. I think this commission, as I see it, I may be wrong, you may ascertain there's more to it, but essentially there's the issue of safety, and then there is the question of sound. What are we going to do? Is there anything we can mitigate the sound? Those are the only opening remarks I have. What we will do is we'll nominate a chairman, or we'll elect a chairman. You will elect a chairman, and then I'll turn the meeting over to the chairman to elect a vice chairman. And I will take nominations. We're going to do it on a ballot. There doesn't need to be a second to the nomination. So anyone who wants...
Mr. Chair, first, I am uncomfortable sitting down and picking a chair and a co-chair without knowing anything about my fellow members of the commission.
That's perfectly fair, Don.
I would suggest we take a minute or two each to indicate why we're here and what we hope to accomplish, and what our qualifications might be for being on the commission.
And we'll start with you, and you told me to do that, and I didn't.
Well.
So go ahead.
I didn't want to surprise you.
No.
Yeah. My name is Don Croteau. I'm here representing the City of Vero Beach Planning and Zoning Board. I've got a strong background in planning, going back many, many years in the North, Connecticut, and in New York. I'm interested in serving here to represent, because Planning Board needed somebody here, and I guess I drew the short straw. But I was a little involved when they put the Acela system in from New York to Boston. I was right on the Connecticut shore when they did that, rebuilt all the stations and what have you. When I was a member of the Regional Planning Board there. So it has a lot of impact, and there's a lot of future stuff. So not only do we worry right now, I think, about what's going to happen initially with high speed going through here, the noise, the safety, and those issues, but what are the long-term implications? What do we have in the city interests in other kind of rail projects? Can we work with this to suggest different things that could be done in the future? So there might be some positives that we're not seeing right now coming out of this, for the city. But I'm concerned about the cost that we may have to incur to protect our city from some of the negative, and what kind of mitigations can we pursue? And I think our job is to recommend, to get public input, and to recommend to the city council, what kind of things we think the public would support that we think they should do. So.
My name is Penny Chandler. I'm the president of the Indian River County Chamber of Commerce, and I've been in chamber management for 33 years in 3 different states. I've been here for 18 years and have been sticking with the subject of why we're here. Our chamber's written into the resolution creating this group. We certainly have an interest from a number of standpoints at the chamber. Certainly the fact that our new chamber facility sits within feet of the rail intersection at 21st and US 1. But more than that, an impact on our membership and on the community. We have an interest in that. I'd like to see this be a very public process with a lot of feedback from the community, and my background also. I've been on any number of state, county, and city committees, commissions. and boards and run many meetings. So that's my background.
My name is Ken Day. Ms. City Clerk, would you rather have me wait to swear in the other two people that came on board?
Good point, Ken.
And I don't know if that was a pun that you meant.
No.
On board.
Mr. Moylan and Mr. Stadley, can I swear you in just real quick? Please repeat after me. I do solemnly swear
I do solemnly
swear.
that I will support, honor, protect,
I'll support, honor, and protect.
and defend the Constitution
And defend the Constitution
and the government
and the government
of the United States
of the United States
and of the state of Florida,
and of
and the state of Florida.
that I am duly qualified
that I am duly qualified
to hold office
to hold office
under the Constitution
under
Under
the
the
Constitution
Constitution
of the state
of the state
and under the charter
and under the Charter
of the city of Vero Beach,
of
the City of Vero Beach.
and that I will well and faithfully perform
that
And I will and faithfully perform
the duties of High-Speed Rail Commission member,
the
duties of High-Speed Rail Commission member,
of which I am now about to enter.
which I am now about to enter.
So help me God.
So
So help me God.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Buck. Again, my name is Ken Daig, and I have a varied background in city government. Number one, I'm a business owner here in the city of Vero Beach. I also live on the west side of the tracks. I am concerned with the safety issues and the sound. I have a background in securing grants. With this moving forward, we're going to have to figure out how we're going to have the monies to take care of these, what they call safety zones. I've been around for quite a while here with the city. I sat on the Charter Review Commission here in 2005. I've been part of Downtown Charettes. I completed various institute for the elected officials with the Florida League of Cities. I've attended various workshops with P&Z meetings, Beachside Master Plan, the Cardinal Drive Overlay District, Downtown Main Street, Charettes, and the list is pretty lengthy. I was also a member of the Indian River County Enterprise Zone, chairman of the Elected Officials Oversight Committee of Indian River County, member of the Florida League Home of Cities Home Rule Council, member of the Indian River Recreation Commission, attended the Florida Public Officials Design Institute. The subject matter was the Twin Pairs, and again, participant in many neighborhood charrette plans. I also attended and received a certificate for the MPOAC Weekend Institute for Elected Officials. So I do have a very strong background, again, in where to look for monies that we will need to secure for grants, with this going through for the safety zones and the quiet zones here that run, where the rail is going to run through the city of Vero Beach. I do have a resume on file if people want to take a look at it, and I'm available to answer questions after the meeting if anyone so desires. Thank you very much.
What we're doing is just giving a quick resume, so.
I almost caught that. I am Kieran Moylan. I am currently, I'm an attorney here in town. I serve the role of an assistant public defender. I have legal background before this. I was an assistant attorney general here in the state of Florida. I did constitutional questions and federal civil rights primarily. Some administrative law before that. I was a corporate attorney here in the state of Florida for a large privately held company for 10 years. I served as the personal counsel and senior vice president to the individual who owned the company and founded the company. Previously, before going to law school, I had the opportunity to work in Washington, D.C., on Capitol Hill, working on many projects similar to the project that's being proposed here in the state of Florida. I have a great amount of interest. I own property here in Vero Beach. However, I'm actually a resident of Indian River Shores, and am interested in to see how this would affect our community as well as our state as a benefit to both, hopefully. Thank you.
Hi, Brian Hetty, familiar face and around city for a whole lot of years. I've worked for government, worked for private enterprise, worked for nonprofits, served on city council, I served on advisory commissions to the city council, to Congress, worked for and with Congress. I most recently an author about a book about Vero Beach. And anyway, the one thing that I would like to do before we select anybody to do anything is, I see some kids here in the background, and I assume you're here from high school as a requirement to attend a government meeting. Those of us up here, those in government, derive their power from you, from the people. We have no power except that which you give to us. And a lot of government officials get that wrong. They get elected or appointed, and they think then they're the boss. They're not. We're not. You are. And before we do anything, I'd like to invite the public, anybody from the public that has anything to say. Someone might have opinions about a chairman or about the committee. So before we select the chairman, I would just like to open up to the public the opportunity to speak as soon as Scott has finished his.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hetty. My name is Scott Stradley, and I am serve on the board of directors for Main Street Vero Beach, a 501c3 organization involved in the restoration in Main Street from a business and recreational and residential point of view. I currently have an accounting practice on 14th Avenue, Main Street, and it's a mixed-use piece of property, and it's also my home. And so I live and work in downtown Vero Beach. I'm currently serving as the chairman of the Utility Commission for the city and as the Board of County Commission representative on their County Economic Development Committee. And I'm looking forward to learning about these issues and being able to make wise recommendations to City Council as we go forward.
Don and Penny, do you want to do a brief recap for the two newcomers, or are you happy as it is? Okay. If there's anybody from the public that would like to come forward, that's certainly permissible at any time, and right now would be good. Seeing no one, we'll move ahead with the election of the chairman. Tammy, the rules on this are that there are 5 voting members that can vote or be chairman. Is that not correct?
Right. Just a reminder that Mr. Stradley is sitting as an alternate member, so unfortunately he cannot be considered as for the chair or vice chair position.
All right. With that said and done, I'll take nominations. You may nominate yourself. There is no second needed. The only point of the nominations is as we vote, if there's those who don't want to be chairman, at least there'll be fewer on the ballot. It'll take us fewer ballots. That's the only point. So I'll take nominations. Any volunteers?
I'll nominate Ken Dage as chair.
All right, Ken, you're nominated duly. Are there any more nominations?
I intend to vote for Ken, so I'm good with that.
Well, if I see no more nominations, Mr. Daig, I believe you're the chairman. You're taking over the meeting.
Should I inquire whether you voted yourself, whether you wanted the job?
No, actually, I did not. I voted for somebody else on my paper. Okay. I'll open it up then for nominations for vice chair.
I'll nominate Don.
Anyone else? I guess, Don, you're it.
Thank you very much.
Well, Don, do you not want to?
Well, I'm comfortable with it because I serve as vice chair right now in planning and zoning, and it's not an imposition. It's just I have to be here. I have to chair if the chairman can't be here, and I'm sure Penny won't miss a meeting, so I'm not really concerned. Or Ken won't miss a meeting.
I was going to say, Penny wasn't the chair. Ken is, but okay.
Okay, now we'll take our Sunshine Law briefing by our Assistant City Attorney.
Welcome. I'm Peggy Lyon, Assistant City Attorney, and I am looking at a group of people who are very knowledgeable about the sunshine and very proactive. So I will keep my remarks very brief. I've given you all a lot of information. I think it came in the package from the clerk's office. And there are a lot of materials online at the city website that you can look at. A lot of you have already served in these roles, so you know the ramifications of the Sunshine Law and the Public Records Law. So I'm going to give you two straightforward rules. Here we go. Do not communicate with other members of your commission about public government business involving your commission any place except at an open public meeting where minutes are taken that has been noticed, just like this, right here. This is the best place to talk to each other. And public records, retain and do not delete or throw away any records that you create or receive having to do with public government business of your commission, and provide them or a copy of them to the clerk's office. That's pretty much it in a nutshell. I mean, if you just stick with that, you can't go wrong. Some other advice going forward, be vigilant. Think about the appearance of impropriety. If it doesn't feel right, it's a gut check. Don't do it. Get some advice from us, and just stop and think. So if anybody has any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Yes, Madam Attorney, it'd be my interest, I guess, to have this, I'll speak up as much as I can, excuse me.
Is your mic on?
It's to have an, I think it's actually good to go. Sorry. Yeah, I'm just somewhat soft-spoken on the microphone, I guess. To have the city attorney's office advise as to what the actual legal power of the commission is, or in fact, what the, I understand we're making a recommendation.
Right. You're just an advisory commission to the city council.
Agreed.
So you aren't a quasi-judicial body. It's all legislative recommendations to the council.
Agreed.
So that's about the only power you have.
So it's a recommendation to the city commission, and the intent of the city commission is, in that sense, to make a recommendation to whom or what power, and in fact, is the city possessing to influence this, other than to be elected body here locally to contact possibly other elected bodies.
You mean your body. You're an appointed body.
A body. I'm actually talking
Right.
on recommendation to the city commission. Where's the next legal step for that, or authority for that body to
Well,
influence
the authority of the
process?
city council as an elected council to approach, are you talking about the legislature or other cities or entities who are dealing with the same issue?
Yeah.
Would be generally by resolution.
Okay, sure.
Or, Wayne, you want to?
Yeah, if you don't mind, Mr. Chairman, I'll basically just read to you from the resolution that established this commission. If you did not get a copy of the resolution,
I did actually read it.
please let Tammy know. But let's put it on the record. The authority and duties. The commission is hereby authorized, this is from the city council, what they extended to you as your duties and authority. The commission is hereby authorized and directed to study, report on, and make recommendations to the city council regarding the impacts of the project, which was described earlier as the high-speed rail, and the high-speed trains on the city, in particular the roadways, properties, residents, and businesses along the railway corridor, including but not limited to consideration of public health and safety, financing of improvements for affected railway crossings, and possible designation and feasibility of quiet zones with restrictions on the blowing of train horns. The Commission shall submit its report and recommendations to the City Council no later than 6 months from the date of the Commission's organizational meeting today, unless otherwise directed by the City Council. In other words, if you need more time, you just ask the Council. Or if you report sooner, you can do that. And I'm sorry, I didn't introduce myself, Wayne Kement, City Attorney. Ones of you that don't know me.
Thank you, Mr. City Attorney.
Did that answer your
It
question?
did. I just wanted to clarify for the record.
Okay, sure.
Thank you.
Any other questions of our attorneys? Okay, hearing none. All right, the next order of business is to set the meeting date and time, and I'll open the floor for your suggestions. Would you like morning or evening, afternoon? What's your pleasure?
Afternoon is always.
Afternoon.
Afternoon? Is that okay with
Any time
everybody?
with me?
Okay.
Yeah.
I would prefer afternoon.
You would prefer afternoon too?
Afternoon's fine.
Okay, how about a time?
4 p.m. worked
This
fine today.
works
Then
on most days for me.
Yeah, 4 is fine.
Yeah, 4 is best.
Everybody okay? Okay, 4 o'clock is the time that we'll have. And
Tammy, 4 o'clock is okay for city staff? Okay.
Thank you. And how about the day of the week that we'll meet? We meet once a month, Ms. Falk, or
That's up to the committee.
how many
How often do you think
times
you need to meet?
would you like to meet here in the near future? Would you like to meet every 2 weeks or once a month?
I guess my question, Mr. Chair, would be is what the goal of the committee is to, are we expecting to take 6 months to do this, or we try to front load it, or how does that work with everybody's interests?
I think it would be really up to this board, how quick we can get through the issues. Of course, we're going to hear from the general public, and then we'll put together our findings and our recommendations to the council. So it's really up to us how long we take. If we do it in half the time, we do it in half the time.
Yeah.
If we need the whole 6 months or a little bit more, that's going to be up to the group.
I think that front-end loading, as it was just suggested, is a very good idea. I don't see the need to cost the taxpayers 6 months' worth of staff time. I think this is something that we probably can front-end load and be done relatively quickly, unless something comes up during the course of these meetings that indicates we will need more time. As far as the once a month or more often, this is the beginning of January. I think that if we met in 2 weeks, that would give 2 weeks' notice to the community to be here at City Chambers 2 weeks from today, and that way we know in advance what the feeling of the community is, and that might help send us in a direction rather than have us go in a direction and find out community doesn't like that at all.
Thank you, Mr. Hetty. Is a 2-week time frame okay with everyone else?
Yeah, I would agree with Mr. Hetty that we shouldn't wait longer than 2 weeks to start gathering the information, whether we meet monthly or more often than that.
2 weeks from today, I will be out of the country. 2 weeks from yesterday, I'll still be here. So
How about 2 weeks from yesterday, then our first meeting?
Yeah.
Which day?
Our second meeting.
The 22nd?
23rd?
Yeah, 22nd. I can meet on the 22nd.
22nd?
Yeah.
Is it okay with everyone that we meet the 22nd? 22nd of Jan?
No, just give me a second here.
I'm going to guess that it's okay.
I have a commitment later on that evening out of town, so it might be a little difficult for me.
Do you want to roll it to 3?
That would help.
Is that okay with the rest of the commission?
Works for me.
Okay,
Works for
3
me.
o'clock, 22nd of January, if that's okay with everyone? Yes?
Are we going to put parameters around the length of the meetings so they don't turn into marathons? Or are we just going to be here for a duration? How do you see that working?
I've sat in all the different meetings. Some meetings go quite quickly. Sometimes we can get it done within an hour. I hate to put limits on the board, but that would be a board decision. If you want to put a time frame on yourselves, that's up to you all.
I don't think we should handcuff ourselves at the first meeting. If we see that we need more time, then we need more time. If the committee, because of a lengthy meeting, decides we've had enough, then we just adjourn till the next meeting.
I think everyone up here is a professional. We all, stay very, very busy with our community activities. I think we'll all be respectful of one another's time. So our first meeting is January 22nd, and the time is at 3. Is that okay, Ms. Falk?
That's on the calendar.
Okay. Anything else to be said on our date and time? Hearing nothing. Moving on to the next. Under new business, number 7, we have A, and that was requested by Mr. Hetty. If you would like to go into that, Mr. Hetty. Number 7.
I'm not looking at an agenda.
Main Street and other organizations.
I sent a memo to the city clerk to see whether or not I could get the members of the various organizations to be here today in case they wanted to kickstart us in a particular direction. And I don't know that there is or is not anybody here. I do see one gentleman here from All Aboard Florida, and I certainly hope that we'll hear from him today. He can give us some input as to I know that I met with him, and he gave me a very nice package, which has been supplied to all commission members. But I would like to talk to him. And then the other thing that I had is that when this commission was originally formed by the city council. I called Tammy and asked her if she could get the committee members together and for a December meeting, and I was told that no one was available for that meeting. So I put together, not to preempt, not to upstage anybody or anything, but I put together something for the end of the year, at least that are my thoughts, and all commission members have a copy of that cold shoulder report. And I think that this report was good as a baseline for at least knowing where one commissioner stands from the beginning. Now, my opinion certainly might change based on the evidence presented, but it's to give you an idea of at least what my baseline is, and my baseline. The short of this this presentation is that I think that the city needs to be very careful. I think that all aboard Florida owns some right-of-ways down through the center of town, and I don't think that we should do anything at all that impedes their right to use their right-of-way, and we need to be very careful about that. And the other thing that in addition to being careful not to step on their toes or their rights, I think that we need to be cautious as to the expenditure of tax dollars. I've already heard from members that maybe we need to look into grants for safety and for those kinds of things. Well, I think that if All Aboard Florida is going to put a train through the middle of town, that All Aboard Florida should be and is responsible for safety. I doubt that there's anything that they're going to do that's going to send a train down through the middle of town in an unsafe position in any way. I can't envision this organization wanting any incidents, any accidents with their train for any reason, whether it be speed, such as the recent Metro North incident. But I think the taxpayers in our community really are taxed right now to the limit, and I don't want to see a lot of, and I don't see any tax dollars spent. The All Aboard Florida wants to come in. This is a profit-making deal for them. They're going to make some money. That's fine. That's wonderful. It's a good thing. But let them make money without the benefit of taxpayer support.
Thank you, Mr. Hetty. We do have a representative here from All Aboard Florida, and sir, if you'd like to step up and introduce yourself.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Rusty Roberts. I'm a Vice President for Corporate Development for Florida East Coast Industries. This is the holding company that owns All Aboard Florida. Florida East Coast Industries is a successor company of Henry Flagler's company that he started in 1890, Florida East Coast Railway. It is Florida East Coast Railway is still a part of the family, but Florida East Coast, of course, has grown and changed over the years, and we have many business units, including logistics services, commercial real estate all over the state, and of course the railroad business. It would be my recommendation that the advisory committee look at before you begin your deliberations. I think what would be helpful to you is to, because many questions are being answered by not only members of this advisory commission, but the general public, to hear about the project the way we are proposing it. For me to present to you the scope of the project, I think in that presentation you will have an opportunity to have many questions already answered, especially with regard to costs and who's responsible for what our short-term plans are, what our long-term plans are, and how we are addressing concerns that are brought to us by the communities in which we are operating. So I can do that. You have a PowerPoint in front of you, which is our basic talking points that we do. I can do that today, but I can do it at opening when you want to meet in 2 weeks. If you want to do that as an opening session when you invite members of the public, however you want to do that. But I think it's important that before not discuss this in a vacuum, but first hear what we're doing, and then I think that'll generate additional questions, but I think it'll also answer some questions in advance. And I think it'll help you get to, as you say, front-loading your recommendations, gets you there a little more quickly.
Mr. Chair.
Good.
If that presentation could be given today, the reason I'd like to see the presentation today is that this meeting is playing, I think it's playing on the government channel, and it can be replayed on the government channel, and that way the public has some information as to what it is that you're planning and whatever points you want to put out there for the public, and they know whether or not then to show up at our next meeting. And they'll have some background.
Thank you, Mr. Heddy. You just heard the request from Mr. Heddy. Would the board prefer to wait for our first meeting to have the fellow do the presentation then?
As far as I'm concerned, I don't think it makes a difference, but I do believe that what you said is accurate. I think we have to start out with a lot of education. I think we have a curve here, a learning curve, to find out how you're planning the project, what the impacts are going to be, what All Aboard expects to do in each of the communities, and what the communities may be expected to do. So I'd like to be educated a little more.
Just hear the presentation.
So it could go either way.
Okay.
Today, if he's prepared to give it today.
I'm prepared to give it. Since this is being televised, it probably should be on your monitor, I would think. I don't know how you want to do that.
Yeah,
But how quickly we can
Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead, Mr. Scott.
I think with respect to the program, I think I agree we need to get the fundamental information out first, but I do want to circle back to Mr. Heddy's request. There is a representative from Main Street here, and that would be me. So if you would like me to expand on the thoughts a little bit more, I can. And also I wanted to, I think, Mr. Heddy, you misspoke when you said that other members of this commission, it seemed to me, and I might have misheard, that other members of the commission had talked to you about spending money. And knowing you, and as well as you know the Sunshine Law.
No, sir. At the beginning, during the introductions, Ken had explained that he had experience in writing grants, and he thought that there might be an opportunity where we had to write grants.
I wanted to clarify, because I know that you know the Sunshine Law, and you would not have had any discussions prior to this. So I wanted to make sure that it was clear, because it was not clear to me, and I knew that I wanted you to have an opportunity to make it clear.
No,
so that was before.
I certainly have not spoken with any member of this commission about anything that might reasonably come before this commission. I have, by way of full disclaimer, full disclosure, I have had an opportunity to meet with Mr. Roberts. He was kind enough to come up to town to talk with commission members. My understanding was he was going to meet with them all. I don't know who he did meet with. I know he did meet with me, and I know that when he met with me, there was a reporter sitting at the next table in Panera's, and that made it to the front page of the paper. So if anybody wants a copy of that. But that was disclosed to both the city attorney's office and the city clerk's office. And I think Mr. Roberts is here and would agree that at any time when any part of our conversations came close to anything that I thought might reasonably come before this commission, I stopped Mr. Roberts from talking and insisted that I would not talk about anything that would come before this commission.
Thank you, Mr. Heddy. Mr. Roberts, you have the floor.
Mr. Chairman, before this starts, I want to disclose, I know Mr. Roberts from my days in D.C., and I would hope that Mr. Roberts would agree that we are friends. I have not talked to him about this project, other than he told me that he was coming to town and asked to meet with me. Unfortunately, my schedule didn't accommodate that meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And I just want to point out that I was informed that since I'm not a voting member of this commission, I'm not bound by the Sunshine Act. So I don't know if you want to.
Well, There was a little confusion.
This is our
He's
Mr.
actually-
City Attorney again.
He's actually not a member. It was kind of a misnomer. He was put on the list. Tammy wanted to make sure he was copied on everything, but he is not an appointed. He was, in fact, I have the minutes here. He was not in the list of persons appointed to the committee by the City Council. So it's fine for you to talk to him outside of this. He's not under the Sunshine Law. As long as two of you aren't together when he's talking to you. But that's fine. Like I said, he was not appointed as a member, so hopefully that takes care of the confusion in that area.
Thank you, Mr. City Attorney. Mr. Roberts?
Thank you. This is pretty much the same similar mayor presentation that I gave in September. A little bit updated because we've had some milestones since that presentation to the City Commission. I'm going to go through then real quickly. I think I gave you a quick rundown of Florida East Coast Industries as a company that was started by Henry Flagler. And let me just, I guess I'll leave it right here. Hold on. And there's Henry right there. So Henry Flagler started this railroad in 1890, as you know. Many people know the story. Bought a hotel in St. Augustine and built a hotel, bought a railroad, and brought that railroad south. And every few miles, he'd build another hotel. And his whole project was sort of a transportation and a real estate project. And he would build a railroad to bring people to his hotels. And he ended up having a string of hotels all the way to Key West. And a couple of those hotels still exist today: the Breakers and the Casa Marina in Key West, and also in the Alcazar in St. Augustine. So his legacy is still with us. And this was a passenger railroad, until 1968. And again, it used to run all the way to Key West until 1935 when the major hurricane came along and blew it down. And then it became a railroad to Miami. 1968, in the late 60s and early 70s, pretty much every passenger rail system in this country went out of business. Americans, the interstate system was pretty much fully built by then. People were using their cars to go where they wanted to go. Airplane travel became much more ubiquitous. It became much more affordable, and people were not riding trains anymore. We think that the dynamic has changed in this country, and there is a market now to bring passenger rail back. So what this company decided to do was look at this corridor and decide whether we can restore passenger rail to this corridor that ran here for 75 years. This is not a decision that the company would make lightly. The investment we are planning to make is between $1.5 billion and $2 billion. And that is something that is not really expensive when you compare. It is very expensive, but when you compare other passenger rail systems that are being developed around the country, California, I think the latest budget there is $68 billion for that high-speed rail system they're trying to build. Why can we do it for this kind of price point is because we own the corridor. This corridor from Miami to Cocoa all the way to Jacksonville is owned fee simple by this company. We do not have to buy right away. And we do not have to lay a lot of new track. We are going to lay several hundred miles of track because where you now see a single track on this corridor, we're going to put 2 tracks down. And this corridor was originally a double track corridor for Henry Flagler's railroad, trains going either way. When 68, when it became only a freight railroad, one of those tracks was pulled up in order to save money so they wouldn't have to maintain it. So what we looked at, and this sort of developed from when Governor Scott sent back the $2.5 billion that the President administration sent to Florida to build a high-speed rail from Orlando to Tampa. After that is when this company looked at it and said, well, wait a minute, Florida is very interested in high-speed rail, but we have this corridor here, so let's look at it. And we did a fairly aggressive ridership study to figure out who might ride this train. We did 2 investment-grade ridership studies, and we had them peer-reviewed to see if our numbers were correct. As anybody who's been involved in government and watched government knows very well, especially in transportation project, when government does a ridership study for a public transportation project, those numbers are usually not quite really what they said they were going to be once that project starts running. We, spending private money like this is not something we were willing to gamble. So we did a very serious ridership study, and we really found that our market is serving those tourists who are the backbone of our economy. And we figure that most of the riders on this train will be tourists. Tour groups from Latin America coming into Miami, tour groups from Europe coming into Orlando. They're sort of the general destinations. The synergies between these two cities of Miami and Orlando can't be understated. Miami has 39 million people coming into their airport every year. In fact, that number is just about to be upped to 40. I think 40 or 41. 36 million people come into Orlando Airport every year, and that number is about to rise. We looked at this and said, well, how many people might go north and south? And we looked at a potential of 50 million customers for this train. Not that we're going to get that many customers, I'd love to, but we looked at 50 million trips between Miami and Orlando every year, and those are just people within 20 minutes of these train stations. That's how many people go back and forth every year. Again, many of them are tourists, but the business activity between Miami and Orlando is also growing all the time. So we know we're going to get a fair amount of business travel, which will probably grow higher than the numbers that you see there as people find out that it's much easier now to do business in South Florida and Central Florida. And so we plan to design a train that appeals to tourists, but also appeals to the business traveler and local residents. And when I talk about the visitors to our train, I want to emphasize that the fact that this is not going to be just normal transportation. This is going to be a travel and leisure experience. What we are going to develop is a hospitality product where a visitor to Miami or a visitor to Orlando or anywhere else in Florida wants to take this train will use this for transportation, but it'll be part of their experience. In Orlando, they call it the Orlando experience. So part of the experience of visiting Florida and all it has to offer, whether it's beaches, theme parks. The major executives that we hired to operate this train are Disney executives, retired Disney executives. So that is the product that we're trying to create, and we think it'll be unique in this nation. I know it'll be unique because we are the only privately funded passenger rail project now under development in the United States. They're talking about one in Dallas to Houston. They're probably at least 10 years behind us, and they have some corridor to acquire, and they have a lot of other hurdles to get to because these people who are trying to do it there don't own the corridor, so they have to acquire it. We're going to plan a service that leaves hourly from Miami and Orlando, so 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. You'll be able to get on the train either direction and get to the other end within 3 hours. That's one of the reasons why we designed the system the way it is right now with just the 2 stops. And again, here in Indian River County and Martin County and Brevard County, I'm having the same discussions and I get the same questions. Why are you designing the system like this, and why are you not stopping in our county? If Amtrak were coming through, they'd be stopping every city they could, and that's their mandate. That's what they have to do. That's a government, quasi-governmental, it's a government corporation. So we don't have to do that. What we have to do is design a product that makes sense, that's going to be viable, that's going to be successful. Because if it is not, then we're out of business, and there will be no future growth. There will be no future stations in other cities. So we looked at a system where we had the most ridership and the most opportunity for success, and that's the system we designed today between Miami and Orlando with intermediate stops in West Palm Beach and Fort Lauderdale. And I guess you can see my emails coming in too, can't you? So I think I'll just close that out. All right. So 3-hour service, we're going to use advanced conventional technology. We're going to use basic diesel engines, but they're going to be EPA rated Tier 4. That's the cleanest kind of diesel you can make today. We're going to have 2 locomotives on each train, one in the front, one in the back, and it's a redundant factor, so if one locomotive fails, you don't want to be sitting on a train that's not moving and that doesn't have air conditioning. So, and plus we don't want to block the tracks for the next train coming down. So we're going to have 2 locomotives push and pull, and that'll help us get to the speeds we want to go to. And I mentioned we're starting in Miami, Fort Lauderdale, and West Palm Beach. The other aspect of this project that makes it successful is the fact that we own the property, and we're going to build the transit-oriented development around these stations. In Miami, that red area there, you're looking at is Henry Flagler's land where his station was placed in 1895. This company's owned that land since then, and for the past 4 decades, it has been parking lots. And it's right next to the Miami-Dade Government Center. Underutilized, and so it is right next to our corridor because that is, again, where his train station was. And if you see the little blue line heading north and south, that's the Miami Metro Rail, where Florida East Coast Railway sold our corridor that used to go to Key West. We called it the Key West Extension. We sold that to Miami-Dade County in 1985 to build their Metro Rail. So another aspect of this system, it's going to be intermodal in every location where we are stopping right now. So in Miami, we're intermodal with the Metro Rail system that'll take you to the airport, take you to Hialeah, take you to South Miami, Kendall, Dadeland, and connects to the Metro Mover, which is the loop that goes downtown Miami to get people to their offices.
Oh, quiet. What, the train's going by, just say.
Yeah, it's great.
I think that's the police.
I do think that's actually a fire engine.
Fire engine?
And then we've also planned to build office space there, hotels. We probably will have a 300-room hotel. We're going to have 3 office towers, 1 super tower, probably 70 stories we're looking at. So this is going to be a major commercial development in downtown Miami. And this, again, is part of the whole package that makes this what we think is a viable business opportunity for you. There's sort of a 3-day version of what it looks like downtown. Miami Beach there is in the background. But this part of downtown has not seen growth in many decades. Most of the growth in Miami, if you know Miami, has been to the south down Brickell Avenue and a little bit now on Biscayne after years of decay. So this part of Miami is waiting for growth, and we think we're going to be a huge economic stimulus for that area. Similarly, in Fort Lauderdale, we purchased some land down Fort Lauderdale along our corridor just north of Broward Boulevard, and that red area is where our station is going to be, and that we're going to have about a 1,000-foot platform there, and we're going to be intermodal with the Broward Transit system there, which the bus system, and the blue line, which they call the Wave streetcar, which is an at-grade streetcar that they're building right now. The city of Fort Lauderdale got a Tiger grant for that. We are going to build a hotel there, some smaller scale office than we are in Miami, but again, we'll have transit-oriented development there. And the same scenario in West Palm Beach, where we intersect with the bus rapid transit system they're building now there. They call it the trolley system, and we're between the government center there and the Performing Arts Hub. And we're, as you can see on the left, the blue line there, Tri-Rail, we're right a couple blocks from the Tri-Rail station. So we have a connection to that area. And coming through this area, heading up toward Orlando is how we're getting to Orlando on the beach line. So State Road 528, heading into Orlando Airport. Our station will be physically within the airport, on the airport property. We are leasing the access to the corridor for the beach line. 2 leases. The Orlando Orange County Expressway Authority owns most of that corridor. We have a lease with them, a 99-year lease, also a 99-year lease with Florida DOT, because they own a section of in Brevard County up to State Road 520 of the State Road 528 corridor there. So we have a lease with Florida DOT. We have a lease access agreement with the Greater Orlando Aviation Authority that runs the airport. It's owned by the city of Orlando. So we have 3 leases with them. A corridor access lease, which is that little orange line heading through their north terminal to what there is going to be the future south terminal. Orlando Airport's going to double in size in the next 10 years. They'll have 120 new gates there, the new south terminal. And our station will be right in the middle of that terminal, and it will grow around our station. When that station was designed in the terminal was designed in the 1990s, they always had a plan for a high-speed rail station in the Orlando Airport terminal. And so we're going to take that slot. We're paying an access fee, and we're paying an annual rent for that, and we're also paying what the airlines would call a passenger facility charge. We pay a fee for every passenger that comes into that airport. And then the third lease we have is we're building our maintenance facility on Orlando Airport. It's right down here, if you can see my arrows, right down here, a maintenance facility to where the cars will be stored overnight, will be cleaned, maintained, repaired, and about 10 cars every night, and a couple will be kept in Miami. So, and then lastly, right down that area is that light blue line. That's the Sunrail. You all know about the Sunrail commuter rail they're building in Orlando, and that will eventually connect to the airport. So that train station will actually house four rail systems when that is finished. The All Aboard Florida train. It'll handle a little automated people mover, which is their little train right there that's going to go between the north and the south terminal. That airport owns that and building that. A light rail system they want to build that'll go from the airport to the Convention Center, International Drive, and then the Sunrail will go into there. So that's the scope of the system. And let me get into a couple of meaty details that would be more of interest to this commission with regard to where we are and what we're doing. The process, just like any other large project, you have certain environmental, it's called NEPA. Most of you maybe know about that, the National Environmental Policy Act. We have to do an environmental impact statement, and we're in the middle of that right now. That was a two-phase project. We had an environmental assessment for the phase from West Palm Beach to Miami. The Federal Railroad Administration administers this process for us, and they gave us a FONSI, that's finding of no significant impact, which means you're not doing anything that isn't already been done in that corridor in South Florida, so go ahead and do what you need to do. So basically, we got our permits to do what we need to do in South Florida to lay new tracks, start building our buildings, to building our stations, putting up our communications facilities. I failed to mention one of the aspects of this train that's going to be plus, as over maybe air travel and other modes of travel, is we're going to have a great Wi-Fi system where people can actually work and do what they need to do instead of texting and driving, or waiting for you to get 10,000 feet before you can turn on your internet on the airplane. So communications towers along that corridor, and then we have some bridges to build. So the second phase of the environmental process is from West Palm Beach to Orlando. That's this area here. The environmental impact looks at any waterways we go over. It looks at any sensitive lands, but we're not taking, again, we're in an existing corridor, and the only time we're leaving our corridor is in Cocoa Beach, and then we're heading toward the airport. That's the new lands that we have to lay track. So part of the impact there is what is there wetland, that kind of thing. The usual considerations when you're doing a major construction project. That project should be done by mid-year. We hope to have public meetings along the corridor probably in March. We had a series of public meetings, so they call them scoping meetings, input meetings, where you could come to, we had one in Fort Pierce, and we had one in Indian River, but I can't remember exactly where it was, where you could come and look at the project and give public input. That was done. Those comments will be in the draft environmental impact statement, which then the public will be able to look at in March or April. And again, we'll have a round of public hearings, and anybody can come to those hearings. They're not really hearings where somebody stands up and give a speech in like a town hall. It's you look at the plan. You ask questions of staff and engineers who are standing around, FRA employees, and then you make comments. Those public hearings will be scheduled in March. We will have one in Indian River County, and the public will be notified. The city will be notified. The county will be notified. And folks can come and look at the plan as it is, finalized, and make whatever comments they want. We hope that a record of decision would come out in May or June. At that point is when we start breaking ground. We'll probably already have started work in Miami, but we will wait till second half of this year before we start doing construction along this part of the corridor. In Indian River County and Vero Beach, that'll be track work, and that'll be crossing work. So every railroad crossing in this city and in this county will have to be redesigned. And not totally. What I mean is where the single tracked, we're going to have a double tracked. With that comes changing in the way some of the gates work, some of the signalization works. Everything has to be upgraded, and that is a fairly significant expense. Now, the mayor knows this, the city manager knows this, just to let you know that every city and county has a crossing agreement with the railroad. Wherever a road crosses our railroad, you have an agreement with us for maintenance of that crossing. So the railroad came through when it did, before these cities existed. Cities were born, cities grew. they came to the railroad and said, we want to build a road and we want to go that way. So we need to go over your tracks. We said, fine. This is how we will manage the cost of maintaining that crossing. So there's a crossing agreement in this city for every crossing here and in this county, where when it is maintained, the city pays a portion of those costs and the railroad pays a portion of those costs. So when it comes to repairing and maintaining the track, that's the railroad responsibility. When it comes to repairing and maintaining the asphalt around it, the signalization, in most cases the signalization, that's the city's responsibility. So it's in the city's budget every year and the county's budget. Usually they put in a little money in a pot every year, knowing that every 5 or 8 years the city's going to get a bill from the railroad saying, we've just been to this particular intersection and we have done some repairs, and here's your bill for your share. This is the way it's done all over the country, and that is the way it's done here. Now, as I said, we have to go through about 304 grade crossings along this 235-mile corridor we're building. Actually, it's going to be 195 because there are no crossings once we leave Cocoa and head west. And we announced, the city knows this, we announced about 2 months ago that we were not going to pull those agreements out of the drawer. When we went into those crossings and started doing those upgrades, we were going to pay for all those costs ourselves. So when you do these kinds of upgrades, it could be several $100,000 per crossing. We know that's a lot of money for a lot of cities, especially the smaller cities, especially in this time of tight budgets. So we made a decision to not invoke our crossing agreements with the cities and counties for this phase of the project, this initial safety upgrade work, which we have to do as mandated by the Federal Railroad Administration. We're going to pay all those costs. The city will not receive any bill from this railroad to do the safety upgrades for these crossings. Now, those agreements remain in place for in the out years when routine maintenance comes around. And so that, I don't know the normal cycle, but it's probably about every 5 or 8 years or something that for each crossing that comes around. It depends. It really depends on the amount of traffic. There are certain crossings that doesn't have a lot of, high traffic counts, and so they last longer. But big roads that have trucks going through, of course, the deterioration happens more quickly. So it really is different with every crossing. That is one of the questions I know has been asked, and that's something that we have been making sure that the cities and counties knew this. Right now, the city of Vero Beach has probably already heard from us, as well as every other city and county along the corridor, from our attorneys to amend the crossing agreements to reflect the fact that we are going to pay for those those costs. The other issue is quiet zones. And some cities really don't have a concern about quiet zones, and others do. And this is something that is a city or county responsibility. So Federal Railroad regulations require when a train is going through, heading to a crossing, I think it's a quarter mile out, you have to sound the horn to warn the public that the train is coming. Gates go down, lights flash. There's a specific pattern that the train must use. 2 long blasts, 1 short blast, 1 long blast. If a city wants to silence those horns, they have to do additional upgrades to that crossing so that the FRA, the Railroad Administration, would give them permission to give us permission not to sound the horn. What does that mean? So right now, when you go to a crossing, right now you're seeing about 2 gates. If you're going this way, you've got a gate in front of you. The oncoming car has a gate here, and you have the lights and the crossbucks flashing. For a quiet zone, you're probably going to have 4 gates. We call it 4 quadrant gates. So that's 2 and 2 on either side. Why is that? Well, a lot of people try to beat the train. When they, as you know, especially when they see a freight train coming and they don't want to sit for 5 or 10 minutes, wait for that 2-mile-long freight train to go by, and so you see people being killed because they try to beat the train. Quiet zone has the effect of maybe sealing that corridor a little bit more to keep that person from trying to beat that train, keep somebody from trying to cross the tracks on foot, because that's a liability issue for the city. That's very important. And so cities all along the corridor are looking at that. It is a local decision whether you want to do a quiet zone. Federal regulations, federal railroad regulations require that the cities and counties make application to do that the cities and counties do the engineering studies to determine what they need to do, that the cities and counties pay for those costs, not the railroad. So we're paying for the safety upgrades, but any additional upgrades that the cities or counties want to incur, want to do to that crossing, is a responsibility of the city.
Question while you're right there. On application, if the city chooses to do a quiet zone or a number of quiet zones and they begin the process, how long does the process take, from the beginning when you start your application to go through all the channels that it has to go through?
That's a good question. It's a matter of months, not years. And what we are recommending, if cities are interested in doing that, and I had this conversation with the commission, that the cities need to begin thinking about that now, because we should look at making any upgrades that you want to do while we are in the corridor doing our construction, and doing it at the same time, because it's going to be a lot less expensive to do that. We'll have our engineering reports and our construction documents for what we need to do. If the city gets approved by the FRA to do additional, we put all that together, the work is done, costs are shared. We've got a situation then where that train goes through much more quietly. And let me just talk about that real quickly. A freight train is about 7,800 feet long on average, about our freight trains, about that long, almost 2 miles. It takes a little longer to get through an intersection. There's a lot more vibration from a heavy freight train. You were talking about your building right next to the tracks and what kind of vibrations you would have. A passenger train is shorter, will be about 900 feet long, 7 cars. It's much lighter. I tell people, think of the difference between an 18-wheeler and a Toyota. Okay, that's the effect on the area around you, or a Ford. Might as well stay with America. So it's a lot different. And of course, in going through the intersection, it's less than a minute. So it's just like if you were to put a new traffic light, a red light signal at that particular crossing, that's how long it takes for our train to go through, the passenger train. Those gates go down. The train takes about 10 seconds or less to get through the intersection. Gates go up within 4 seconds. The whole process is about 45 seconds tops. And so it's a lot different from a freight train going through. It's a lot quicker. Again, let me stick to the traffic light analogy. If you put a new traffic light at an intersection out here near the train or anywhere, any intersection you want to put a new traffic light, that's going to cycle 60 times an hour, roughly, red and green, red and green. When we do it, it's going to cycle twice an hour. So we're doing hourly service. We're doing 16 trains a day each direction. Now you get that quizzical look. So we're going to run 32 additional trains on this track. You have 14 freight trains running now every day. Our system will have about 32 additional trains. But that's 2 an hour going through at less than 45 seconds. So some people are concerned about a lot of closings, but when in reality it's a very quick process. The train scoots right by. Penny.
Go ahead.
I don't know. I think it's a question for our city manager. In the case of Vero Beach, where you have State Route 60 running through the downtown, is that the responsibility then of the state?
We have been told the quiet zones would be totally independent of the state. The state doesn't care one way or the other if it's a quiet zone. So it'd be our decision if we want to do that. And one of the reasons that you can't really make an application early is because part of that applications are the engineering studies that you have to do, so you incur cost pretty much up front on those applications.
My next part of the question is in regard to the flyover. Is that owned by the city? Does the city maintain that flyover area going from US 1 to 14th Avenue?
US 1 to
That's
14th.
what I've heard it called in town, a flyover.
You're talking about that busy
the
little
place where you can come off US
right
1
down the street from where you are?
and just fly over the tracks and hit 14th
Okay.
Avenue.
That's not what I think of a flyover. I think of a flyover.
I know, but that's the only thing I've ever heard it called here.
The answer is that's still part of an intersection if we wanted a quiet zone in that area. So that is the responsibility of ours, is the maintenance agreements that we have. And those maintenance agreements, whenever they go in and do some patchwork in order to maintain the track, and as Rusty said, the track itself is their responsibility, but if they do anything else, virtually we share costs depending on what it is. And then a lot of times if they're going to have major renovations to those crossings, no matter where it is. At that time, we usually look at all of our utilities that go under those, and if we need to make adjustments to our utilities, that's the time to make it, because those also are passing. So those humps that you're talking about, more than a flyover, is just a typical standard crossing from the train's perspective.
And we only have one of those in the city, right?
Well,
like that?
That one's a bad one, but if you look at, I think 26 goes across too, and it sort of has a hump, not a flyover, but a hump.
Okay.
And then you sort of come down on it.
What's unique about that one is it's a one-way.
Right.
It's just off US 1. And that's it.
Well, that's true, and it also has all that corridor there that has 2 or 3 streets that come in, because you have the bend in one at that particular site.
That's the one that feeds right into 14th Avenue.
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
Mr. Chairman, while you're up there, Jim, have we done any estimates at all in terms of the cost per intersection if we wanted to do quiet zones on all of them? Do we have any idea of how many are more than a quarter mile apart? Because I understand the horn has to sound. How many times would this horn be sounding going through the city, given the structure? Have you had any occasion to look at that?
Is it 7? Yeah, the answer to the question on the intersections, we have looked at it and talked to folks. Highway 60 would be somewhere in the neighborhood of $600,000.
That's the most expensive one?
Yes, sir. That's the widest.
Generally, we 200,000 might be an average for just a normal, not a major street. 200,000 to 300,000.
200,000 or 300,000. We have how many gated intersections right now in the city?
7.
7.
7.
Okay.
But most of those, for example, the so-called flyover, well, you'd still, if you're going to do a quiet zone, you'd have to really do all the intersections, because we're not that far apart.
Right.
I mean, when you start doing quarter mile blowing of the horn,
would just
every
keep going.
intersection.
It sounds like they're going to start blowing the horn and then stop blowing the horn when they leave.
Yes.
City.
Yeah, it sounds like
If
they're
it's going through every 10, it's taking 10 seconds to go through, then it's not going to take that long to get to the next
Well, right now we
intersection, which isn't a quarter mile away.
The trains that are coming through now do the sounding of the horns, and we periodically get complaints, primarily on the south end where there's residential areas. But presently, we have the sounding of the horns.
I understand, but these trains are faster, so they're going to cover that quarter mile.
Yeah, he'll be doing one of these deals. The other thing is, and from what Rusty has said, their plan is from 6 to 9, so it's really not outside of our noise criteria under our ordinances, because I think we go to 10 o'clock for
Actually,
noise code.
I think the last train will be coming through here about quarter to 11.
We
Quarter
leave in
to-
Miami.
Oh, okay, 9 o'clock.
Jim, what's the furthest, what's the crossing at the furthest south in the city? What street are we talking about?
Oslo.
That's not in
That's
the
not
city.
the city.
It's not
Yeah,
the city.
but I mean, you'd still have.
No, I mean.
Further south,
city.
16th Street.
16th,
16th, so our responsibility is 16th to the south.
that's correct.
Yes.
And aviation to the north.
Right, okay.
Mr. Chairman, before the city manager leaves, I don't remember from being on city council, I don't remember a line item for cost. What's it cost the taxpayers currently? Is there a yearly amount that,
I don't
For
think
that
it's a yearly
maintenance?
amount. I'd have to get that from Public Works. I don't know what that number is.
no guess?
No.
No.
And it really is budgeted, not on, as I understand, not on an annual time, but the railroad gives us what their maintenance frequency is going to be and the schedule.
So they do the maintenance and then send you the bill?
That's correct, yes, sir.
So we have no responsibility for the maintenance other than paying for it?
That is correct.
Mr. Chair, if I may. Mr. City Manager, have you had any indication from the county if they intend to pursue quiet zones within
No.
the county?
I have not had any conversation with the county.
Anyone else with comments? Mr. Roberts, if you finish up. And we'll take comments from the public as soon as Mr. Roberts is finished.
Mr. Roberts, you've laid out a plan for, the initial structure, and you mentioned that 50% of your traffic is going to be tourist-oriented. And-
Probably 70.
Yeah,
70,
and there's a lot of tourist stops along the way, which you are not including in there. In some cases, railroads have two kinds of trains. They have a high-speed train, and then they have a slower train, which would stop intermittently at some of the places along the way. Are that in your plans at all? Like they do that in the Northeast Corridor. You have a high-speed intermixed with a slower train that stops in many more places.
You gave the example that I always give. That in Washington and New York, you have a choice of the fast train, fewer stops, and you have a slower train, and you might pay a different price for that. What this company hopes to become is something of the state's railroad operator, and so we are looking at this corridor as the base, the trunk of our system. What is the most viable? What is would bring the most return on the investment, has the most chance for success. But assuming we're a success, that doesn't mean we're going to stop there. But one of the hallmarks of success, I mentioned, is that 3-hour trip period, because we found in our surveys that to get people out of their car and onto the train, or out of the airplane and onto the train, is something about 3 hours, and the way we've designed it, it'll be just a little bit less than 3 hours. So that's why we have the minimal stops, and in those stops were the largest cities, that's where most of the riders are. Now, if we're a success, and I think we will be, we would be certainly looking at expansion of the system, and that might include other parts of the state, but it would also include additional stops along the corridor, something along the way you just mentioned. We will always run this express train because that's what people are going to want. That's what the market is going to demand. If we were to expand it and add additional stops along the corridor, somewhere in Indian River County, Vero Beach certainly is a great spot. Melbourne's asking, Coco's asking, Fort Pierce is asking, Stewart's asking. You would not have the hourly service that you're going to get out of Miami and Orlando, but you might get something less than that. All that depends on the market studies that we do and what we feel that makes business sense. So we want to get this thing in place first. If it does in place, there are an opportunity. If it is successful, there are opportunities for expansion. If it's not successful, no one's going to get a stop.
Along that line, successful, are we going to start off with 16 trains?
That's the plan.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the plan.
Second thing, I've seen a map showing Phase 2 or Class 2 stations in Cocoa and Vero Beach. Is that still?
I've never.
That was Amtrak.
That probably was an Amtrak.
Amtrak.
We've not done any. Amtrak is still looking, has been looking for a couple of decades at returning to this corridor, to the FEC corridor, and they've had some plans out there, and they would have a lot more stops probably here, they would still like to move to this corridor, and that's something that I'm sure is in the future, but I would not say there's any serious discussions going on right now. They would have to pay an access fee to get onto the tracks. Amtrak has a tight budget, and we've had a tough economic several years, so I think that I do know internally that the Amtrak's now talking about looking more closely at it. Yes, sir.
I have a question for Mr. Roberts, but if you're interested in the Amtrak, they did a study and they couldn't make it work. It ended about a year ago, but if you were to talk to Kim Delaney, Penny, I believe you know her, you could probably get an update. But really, that's not why I came up here. In one of your earlier presentations, there was some talk that if the work on the quiet crossings was done at the same time you were doing your crossing, there was a little bit of a mediation of the cost from the community's point of view. And if that's correct, if you would talk about that.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. So, as I said, we feel it's important if any city or county wants to implement quiet zones, let's do it while we're doing it because it'll save everybody money. We feel that the safety upgrades we are going to make will naturally get any crossing a little bit closer to where you want to be in terms of a FRA-approved quiet zone crossing, but not all the way there. So I think that's what the mayor is referring to. But the other point that I wanted to make, maybe you're referring to, Mayor, is that, and this is a hard decision, that any current open crossing that a city or county deems maybe is not necessary. Maybe there's very low traffic count on this crossing. We don't need to cross the railroad tracks here. We can close this road. If the city or the county were to choose to close a crossing, that saves the railroad money too. We would take some of those savings and provide that to that particular municipality, the value of that savings to help with the cost of quiet zones and other crossings. I just got a call today from a city manager in another city asking, who do I call to talk about closing a road? So someone's talking about it.
And the obvious one is the one-way one. Do we really need it if there was some credited money from the railroad to be used elsewhere? It's
That
an
was
open
scheduled
question.
for closing by Amtrak if they were going to come in, and I heard what you said, that they've decided to opt out of that, but part of Amtrak's plan was to close that because that was the only place where they can get 1,000 feet. So that one was scheduled for closing anyway.
And Mr. Mayor, you mentioned Kim Delaney. The Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council has a task force that is looking at quiet zones for all the counties in which the Regional Planning Council operates. She's taking the lead on that. She's become a quiet zone expert, and she's working with the cities and counties on this. And I will tell you one other thing, particularly in some cities and counties, particularly in the southern part, Palm Beach in particular, because I think the city of West Palm Beach has something like 30 crossings. And so they're looking to the legislature and to the state of Florida for assistance. And some resolutions have, I'm not recommending anything to anybody right now, but some resolutions have gone from, I know, Boca Raton, I think West Palm Beach and other areas, sending resolutions to the governor or the legislature, suggesting that this project that we're building is of regional significance and maybe the state should help out with this. So don't know how the state's going to react to that. That is something that the cities and counties want to do. We're not pushing that.
So just following what Mr. Roberts said, we recently sent a couple resolutions to the state, one on rentals and the other one on the so-called step system. One of the recommendations the commission could make is that the city council come forward with a resolution to the state to join with Palm Beach in asking for help, and that would be your recommendation to make to us.
That would have to happen pretty quickly.
Well, and I know you, Chairman, you want to move along. You asked me, I couldn't remember this a second ago, something you need to know. So, and the city does know this, but I should inform you that because of this crossing studies that we're doing, the safety upgrades we're doing, is undergoing a diagnostic study right now. So we have teams out, our engineers, Federal Railroad Administration, looking at the crossings right now, guys with clipboards, to decide what we need to do at every crossing and in terms to meet the FRA regulations that we have to meet for safety. They'll be doing some what we call, desktop analyses, studies of the crossings, trying to develop an engineering plan, cost it out. We are including the cities and counties in that at phase 2. I think it's phase 2. The city's public works or chief engineer director will be invited to sit in on meetings and go over the engineering reports, the design plans. At that point, that's where the cities and counties, it's the best time for them to provide their input.
If I may, Mr. Chairman?
Sure, go right ahead.
Mr. Roberts, as a practical matter, you'd mentioned that you guys are going to be constructing track, I guess, the second part of this year. So for a city to avail themselves of the benefit of the economy of scales of the construction for safety zones, and you say it takes a couple months to go through the Federal Railroad process to get a quiet zone, at what point are you saying that with y'all's anticipated construction schedule that this city would have to make a decision to commit to that quiet zone?
That's a good question that I don't think I can answer very definitively at this time. The diagnostic, when the diagnostic phase is over and assessment phase for these crossings is over, which should be sometime in February, I think we'll have a better handle on that. I would say that 2014 is the year that these decisions have to be made.
Could you come back at our next meeting, please, and give us a more definite time?
I will ask if I can give you a more definite time.
Okay. And well, go ahead, Mr. Mayor, because I have two things as soon as you're done.
No, I just was talking to Jim, and it might be appropriate, along with City Works, if one of you was part of when the team came through, so he had direct knowledge. It would be between you and the city manager and the railroad.
A team member who would like to be that?
Unfortunately, I'm going to be out of the country for about 5 weeks. And
Sure you do.
I'm happy to volunteer for anything the committee
Okay,
needs.
we have a volunteer.
If the city manager would be so kind.
Right.
as to let
Mr.
me-
Chairman, I have a few
I know
questions.
you know how to get in touch.
All right ahead, Mr. Hetty.
You said there's going to be double track. There's already double track through the city, but one of them is a siding, so there'd be 3 tracks through the city?
Probably.
Do you have any idea of the total expenditure for this whole project? Any idea what the ballpark?
I mentioned earlier that our initial budget, total budget for the project is about $1.5 billion.
1.5 billion. The any private? That's all private dollars. There's no tax money.
We have designed the system. We've pledged not to take any taxpayer subsidy for operating expenses, for capital expenses. What other kind of expenses are there?
Well, I'm talking
grants,
about
no government grants. We are operating this privately.
Okay. So no tax. The diesel fuel you talked about, is any lead in that at all?
I don't know the makeup of diesel. I don't know. That's a good question. Tier 4, a Tier 4 locomotive would imply to me pretty clean fuel.
Okay. I'd like to know if there is a lead component to that fuel. The
I don't think there's lead in any gasoline anymore, is there? Is there? I guess.
There is in some. The 70-story building that you're planning in Miami, you do know you'd have to get a variance in Vero Beach if you wanted to go up 70 stories. I think the height limit is a little less than that.
So we're going to do
here.
50 here.
Okay.
Be careful. We can't even joke about that.
No.
I guess the city manager already, you're going to get an answer from me, Jim, on the current total budget for cost of the maintenance on those things. The quiet zone, if I understand the answer that was already given, is something south of $1 million per intersection?
South?
Less than? I mean, I heard a number of 600,000.
Yes,
and I know how those kinds of
believe
estimates work.
You know, the city makes those estimates. I do not know how much it would cost, but we've been the estimate that was just given to you, I believe, was for probably the high figure. Figures we've heard are lower than that, probably less than $500,000.
And that expenditure is on the backs of local taxpayers.
Those are the responsibilities of the cities and counties.
And is there anything a local entity can do to convince the all aboard Florida to pick up the cost of the city?
Let me also say it's a choice. This is not a mandate. The city does not have to do this. This county does not have to do this. This is a choice, and it's a quality of life choice.
Well, yeah, and quite frankly, if you start to think about the time, the first city crossing is at 16th Street. By the time you get past the old health department there, where you head over 26th Street, over towards you're about at the end of the city. It's you'd be through the whole city in 15 seconds. So to spend a lot of money is something I'd have to really be talked into. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
go ahead.
Given the previous discussion, if we're talking $600,000 for the State Route 60 intersection and 6 more intersections at approximately $400,000, which is what you estimate under $500,000, we're talking a $3 million project for the city.
Mr. Couture, I think that I would have to defer to the city's public works department to come up with those estimates and act accordingly.
Well, they were your numbers.
I would just predict.
I think it's important that we have those numbers as soon as possible. And your people seem to have the best knowledge of what would need to be done and what the story is. I would expect that your organization should be able to come up with a first set of estimates as to what would be the appropriate cost.
Well, we'll be coming up with estimates for our safety upgrades, but nothing beyond that.
But as the commission member said, I mean, certainly you're best positioned to come up with the estimate for this type of thing. It's a number somebody in your organization already knows.
To have an accurate estimate, you need to have an engineering study done and to hire that engineer is not the railroad's responsibility. So we are not going to hire an engineer to study the cost of an intersection for a quiet zone.
I'm not asking you to hire an engineer, but I can tell you that in the construction industry, I could tell you within $1 million what the total cost of a $20-30 million project was by weighing the prints. The trusted dartboard method always works, but ballpark estimates are accurate, and it's something. If your organization is going to put a train from Miami to Orlando, that seems to me it ought to be a number that you could give to us, or somebody in your organization already knows.
Well, I think Mr. Roberts is being very clear. The responsibility of the quiet zones is upon the city, and this commission here will have to come up with some recommendations. And with that being said, I'd like to hear from Ms. Kim Delaney at our next meeting. I'd like to put her on the agenda to come in to speak to us to see what type of monies are available out there and where they're at. Would that be okay with the committee?
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, go right ahead.
Have some questions. I want some clarification. You said that if we were to close an intersection, that you would be willing to share part of the cost of your upgrade on that intersection with us.
Well, we wouldn't. Yes, the upgrade that we don't have to do now. Mm-hmm. Correct.
First part of this is why only part of the cost, and secondly, it doesn't also, when we close an intersection, eliminate some liability to the corporation for
It eliminates
accidents?
liability for the railroad. Yes.
Is there no value to that? If we're giving up. If we give up a crossing that inconveniences our citizens, it adds value. There's value to that to the railroad.
And I'm sure our company attorney and the city attorneys would be in best position to negotiate those kinds of agreements.
And with that being said, because we're keeping minutes of this, that's the first suggestion, because I like to keep a list of what they'll give us credit for. And you just brought up a real good one. So we can go through that list since the attorneys have to get together, and we can find out the dollar amount. So that's the beginning of our list.
And Scott's point is good, that if the community is going to give up something, and we would be giving up something if we close access or close a crossing, it's going to inconvenience the community, or at least the people that use that crossing. And Scott, I would agree that if we're going to save them money, they ought to give us all of that money back towards anything else that would be a cost to the taxpayers.
And again, we have to know the dollar amount. And the number two issue that I'd like to get on the floor here is Mr. Mayor brought up that we should do some type of resolution here that they can carry forward to our state legislators. Mr. Mayor,
I was going to suggest that, although I can't make that motion.
Are you done yet, Mr. Roberts?
Yeah, unless you have further questions,
Okay.
yes.
Any other questions yet? Ma'am?
I have one question. I think, again, it goes to the city manager, and that is, given the fact that we would be responsible for making a decision on that flyover, crossover, whatever you call it, onto 14th Avenue, the one-way, do you have does the city ever do any traffic counts on areas like that so that we can make an educated decision on whether or not that would be a recommendation of this committee to close
We
that?
can do traffic counts. I don't know if we probably have some traffic counts at that intersection because we usually do them throughout the city of periodics, and I'd have to get some, find out how current it is.
Okay.
But it would give you a good ballpark estimate.
Thanks. Well,
All
then, Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
if that's the case, I would make a recommendation, or I'd make a motion that we request a traffic count on that particular intersection, and also that we would move forward in asking the City Council to look at a resolution to join Palm Beach in the request for state funds.
I'll second that.
And if I could make a suggestion that we get traffic counts on all of our intersections, that would be potentially 21st Street is sometimes a difficult intersection to get through anyways. And I know that 16th and 60 Aviation are probably unclosable. But we may be able to look at some others and do some evaluations, do some thoughtful analysis.
Okay, and with that being said, if I can have the city manager come back up, I have a question. Because we have a motion on the floor and we have a second. Would you be able to get all this information together for us for our next meeting with the traffic counts?
I don't think I can get you traffic counts in 2 weeks.
Can you at least do
but
one?
unless I have some that, and they may be aged.
Can you do the one?
I can do that. Well, yeah, I think 2 weeks is a relatively short period of time, but what I'll do, if you'll just give me the opportunity to go find out what we have on our traffic counts. Current.
Mr. Chairman, I think for committee purposes, we don't need a new count. We don't need to spend taxpayer dollars. The aged report is fine.
Yeah,
Whatever Monty currently has is fine.
What I'll do is go back and find out what we have.
Is that acceptable with everyone?
Yes.
Yeah, if we get down to some, we may need that in the future to make some decisions.
Yeah, I think you've got plenty of time on
discussion.
this. It's not like we're going to write to the railroad. Rusty's not going to be closing intersections tomorrow. So I think you have plenty of time. I just got a text back from Monty. We have not been contacted by the railroad yet to do any engineering discussions on those intersections. So when that comes up, we will get in touch. And I'll try to get that information on our annual budgets of what we do for railroads.
All right. I would also like, at our next meeting, if the railroad could give us an estimate of how long the trains would be going from one end of the city to the other.
If you don't mind, we have a motion. Second on before we need to vote. Ms. Vaughn, if you do a roll call.
Well, let's do some discussion here first.
All right, go ahead.
The motion is to join Palm Beach in asking for state money. Whether it's state money or local money, it's all our money. It's all tax money. And before I would make a recommendation that city council should go join anybody looking for money, I guess I need to know a whole lot more about what this tax expenditure is.
Thank you, Mr. Tardy. Go ahead.
If I may, one of the concerns that I would have as a resident here is that whether or not we decide to pursue those funds, I'm certain other counties will. And I think we would literally miss the train if we did not start that now. Although I understand we need to be good stewards of taxpayer money, what I've learned with my time in D.C. is that those taxes come from gas and other places, and if you don't ask for them, you just won't get them. And therefore, I think it would not be prudent. In fact, would be in lack of interest if we didn't pursue those funds and pursue them soon. Whether we ever obtain those funds or whether any of those funds are ever expended in this city is another question. But I think we should join that as soon as possible.
All right. Thank you, sir. Anyone else?
I would just like to comment that that county is getting some benefit from this project. We are not. So we are in a better position of requiring funds to help cover the cost because we are getting zero benefit from this project. They're getting a train station. They're getting a lot of they're getting a lot of tourists. And, they're saying they don't want to incur the cost. We're getting none of it. So whatever costs we can get, it's a state responsibility, I think, for especially for those places like ours where we get no benefit at all from this project.
Well, I can follow up on the state issue too. And Jim, maybe I asked this question. I'm sorry, short-term memory loss here. Route 60, where it crosses, is that a state because it's a state road? Is that a state responsibility for the maintenance of that?
Well, we have utilities that run under there and over that, so we have some responsibility. So some of the crossings were done at our request, so we do have some exposure. I'm not sure if the state signs agreements with the railroad, but it is all state right-of-way. But
Ms.
we
Chandler,
have
you had a
utilities.
question?
Well, I was just going to add a comment. State legislative committee meetings begin next week, and they will run for 3 weeks before session starts. So it's pretty critical that if we even are considering going for building any kind of coalition with Palm Beach and requesting some funds, that the recommendation has to go before City Council for a vote. So that's going to take some time, and it needs to move forward.
Ms. Chandler, your motion had two components that seem to be different, and there seems to be some different discussions on those. Perhaps you could make two separate motions.
Be happy to.
And that would, I think, maybe expedite this.
The first motion would be to, as the city manager has already mentioned, to have the city manager bring back traffic count on the crossover that I was asking for the crossover on from US 1 onto 14th Avenue, the one-way crossover. I think that Mr. Stradley requested documentation on numbers for other intersections as well. That's the first motion.
I have a second.
And just to modify.
And to add that that Mr. Hetty, that they can be older numbers.
Yeah, for any
I think
of the
that
crossings at all that we
good
have in the
benchmark
city of Vero
numbers.
Beach, just give us the old numbers that they have on any of the intersections.
All existing traffic counts, yes.
All right.
That's my motion.
Everybody, and we
Aye.
have a second, if we can do the roll call.
Mr. Hetty?
Yes.
Mr. Moylan?
Yes.
Mrs. Chandler?
Yes.
Mr. Croteau?
Yes.
Mr. Daig?
Yes.
My second motion is that the city of Vero, that we recommend to City Council that they move forward in seeking, putting together a resolution to seek that we join the city of Palm Beach in the request for funds from state government for the quiet zones. West Palm Beach. West Palm Beach.
I'll second that.
Can we ask to get our name on the list without committing to? It's kind of an open-ended thing. Never mind.
Are you? Can I ask Brian a question? Are you going the route that if we request the money and then we decide not to use it, is that what you were thinking?
Well, yeah, I don't want to ask for money just because it's out there and it's available, unless we feel or the city council feels that it's a benefit to the city. I don't want to spend it just because it's state money and it's available and we're the first to ask.
I think that would be a given. Yeah.
And I'm pretty certain that the state's not going to 100% fund this in any way, shape, or form.
If Governor Scott's past performance is any indication of future, he pretty well next to the railroads.
And I think basically what we're realistically asking for is a reallocation, a reorientation of the transportation budget that we pay for in the gas taxes already. And so it's not, our state runs in a balanced budget. So they would have to reallocate some projects and do some things at that level to free up the funds to do this. So it's not, it's probably going to come out of the gasoline taxes and of course maybe then the other source of revenue for the state is sales tax, which again we pay, and it would be a reallocation of the state budget since they do have a balanced budget.
Mr. Mayor?
I don't think Don's number of $3 million is a bad one, and you won't know what the number. We won't know what the number is until each crossing is faced. I do remember from an earlier meeting, I'm not sure, Mr. Roberts, you were there or not, but the number was something north of $100,000 if you close the one crossing. It won't help the $3 million that much. I think the thing to understand, and when you talk about governments, you have a state government and a county government. Under home rule, you have us. You have school districts, which are something of an independent government. And one thing to understand is, the railroad is really operating under federal rules, not state rules. And as such, it's almost quasi-governmental. And I don't mean that in any way other than factual. I do think it's worth putting a resolution forward because you're also asking the support of your local senator and representative. And I do think what one of you just said, I think you just said, Kieran, is accurate. Whether we'd get any help or not, I don't really know. And we certainly wouldn't get 100% help, but, I think it's worth doing personally, but it's up to y'all.
Ms. Vaughn, if you can call the roll, please.
Mr. Hetty?
No.
Mr. Moylan?
Yes.
Mrs. Chandler?
Yes.
Mr. Croteau?
Yes.
Mr. Daig?
Yes. Any other questions of the committee? Because we do have someone from the public that would like to speak.
One final question, if I may. To the city manager, I'd be interested to know if the city is aware of any sound studies that has ever been done in the rail corridor in the county. If you could check with the county or who the proper person, I would not know who that would be. I'd just be interested to know, because independent of the safe zones that we have from Aviation to 16th, it may be a moot point if down on 12th they don't have one, or the intersection north, because this train's going to be moving fairly fast.
Fast, yeah.
Yes, sir.
I'm not aware of any, but I'll check sound studies.
Thank you.
And that will be part of our next time agenda. That's another thing on our list.
Mm-hmm. Train horn, I think it's set about.
You have to come up here so everybody can hear you, sir. Thank you.
It's set at about 90 decibels.
Thank you.
And again, I was asked this question during the discussion. Could we get an estimate of the length of time that the train will be going through the city?
Otherwise, the speed at which you think
Yeah,
it's going
the
to train.
speed,
From county line to county line.
40 seconds.
40 seconds?
I heard 3 minutes and I heard 40 seconds.
At 110 miles an hour from 16th Street to Aviation Boulevard.
And how long is each horn going to sound for?
If you give me permission to try that at 2 o'clock in the morning, I can tell you I'll do it. I'll put US 1.
We can calculate.
This is calculated.
I can't say that the speed through here will be 110 miles an hour. There are stretches where it will be 110, so I don't know through the city of Vero Beach. We have to slow down in certain areas. What was the other question?
How long does each horn, when you do the horn sound for each intersection, what's the length of time?
But they call it, that's a good question. It's probably it's probably written in code, I don't know, but it's 2 long blasts, 1 short. 1 long. I was standing in front of those, parked in front of the chamber office last week, and a train went by, so I kind of listened, and the long blasts were pretty short. The short blast was real short. So, but I've heard longer.
But that was a freight going by at about 25, 30 miles an hour?
I think about 40.
Okay.
40. So
how long? I'm kind of curious of what it's going to sound like for this train going up to 110 miles an hour, maybe only 90 miles an hour, from Aviation to 16th, when they have to blow the horn 3 times for each one of those intersections, which are, I don't think any of our intersections are more than a quarter mile apart.
Right. When you have them so close together, it sounds like sometimes the guy's just laying on the horn.
Yeah.
That's it.
Right.
And so then how long will he be laying on the horn
From
as he goes
16th
through
to
our city?
Aviation.
He'll be doing it in long and short blasts, but
I'm saying-
continuously.
And how long is that? Mr. Hetty's 40-second
I don't know.
estimate, or could you?
I don't know that I will ask.
Could you get us that information for our next meeting? That would be very nice. Especially, it would be even nicer if you could do a sound thing.
I'll bring
Have one of your train guys,
I'll
come
bring
and
a
do
horn
it.
in.
Yeah. Bring a recording.
Actually, we do have a list, and what I'll do is I'll go through the record and find out the list and pull it out with the city clerk's help. You'll all get a copy of the list and then add to the list as you would like and send it back to Ms. Vaughn, and then we can have those questions on our list for the fellow, Mr. Robertson, whoever else he wants to bring along at the next meeting, so we have this information. If it's okay with you all, we do have Mr. Cafati. He's been patiently waiting to come up to address us. Sir, if you would.
Yes, thank you very much for the opportunity. My name is Joseph Cafanti, and I pay taxes to the city of Vero Beach. I just wanted to ask the gentleman a couple questions. I don't have any statement to make. I know there's tracks that go to Okeechobee. Are there no tracks that go from Okeechobee to Orlando? Just curious.
Mr. Roberts, could you answer that?
Ask me again.
There are tracks that go from West Palm to Okeechobee.
Those are freight spurs to serve.
Well, the Amtrak train runs along them. I'm not arguing with you. I
From
know
Orlando,
that.
did you say Orlando to Okeechobee?
No, from West Palm to Okeechobee.
You might be thinking
I'm just
of
curious why the train runs. The Amtrak train runs from.
Okay, that's on a different set of tracks. It's not our tracks.
Oh, they're not your
Those
tracks.
are the CSX lines.
Okay, that explains that.
Thank you, Mr. Roberts.
Thank you. The possibility you mentioned forward-looking. What do you think the possibility of, although Amtrak is not going to do it, that your organization run local passenger trains up and down from Miami to Jacksonville, as other states do, like New Jersey Transit and SEPTA, et cetera?
Well, New Jersey Transit, SEPTA, and other states are running transit systems, there might be commuter systems. They're all government subsidized. As such, they have a different kind of mandate to serve populations, just like the city bus would have to serve. It has to stop multiple times to serve the community. A private sector operation is under no such mandate. So we would, any expansion we do, we would undertake after studying the viability of the project, and if it makes sense for us.
Is it possible that you might do that? Do you think that
It is possible to have. It is definitely possible to have additional stops along the entire corridor.
Okay, can you tell us why the Amtrak decided not? Can you tell us why Amtrak decided not to pursue the up the coast line?
I don't think they've stopped. I don't think they've decided not to do anything. They just had to put it on hold. It's on hold right now.
All right. And the last thing, I think the last thing is, could you provide this group with a long term, as far back as you can go, the deaths on the along the railroad line? Would that be possible? Deaths by the train hitting either a car, or a vehicle, or a pedestrian.
I will ask the railroad if they have those figures.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Roberts.
Those figures, I looked at them online at one time, and they were sort of confusing. I didn't want to take the time to analyze them. But I've lived here for 35 years, and there have been a lot of people that have been killed, pedestrians, that have been killed by the 50 mile an hour, or however the freight trains go. And I'm familiar with trains. I grew up with them, et cetera, et cetera. Before you look at any silent thing, you better consider what people would do, not vehicles, but pedestrians, because these trains come along awful fast, and I know Brian is familiar with them. You're standing there, and all of a sudden there's a train there, and you never even heard it coming.
Yeah, school buddy of mine.
Never heard it coming.
Never heard it coming. This was up in New York.
So be very, very careful of what you do. This is my statement. Be very, very careful what you people do as far as not blowing the horn, because I would suspect that you're going to put the lives of people in jeopardy, because they look up the track and the train's way far away, if they see it at all. And this train is going to move, and I think the guy is right. It's 3 minutes through the county, from once it enters the county till it exits up by Sebastian River, I guess.
Yeah.
But it's only about a minute going through the city of Vero Beach, these trains.
Thank you,
It's
Mr. Gafanti.
very easy.
Thank you.
Mr. Gafanti just brought up a good point. The quiet zones. If there's a pedestrian, and I've seen this in many places in the city, they cross over the tracks without that horn. My goodness, you really would have no warning at all if you weren't standing at an intersection. And I've seen people travel across the tracks.
Mr. Roberts?
Just to make clear you understand, a quiet zone does not allow you to stop the lights or the bells, the ding, ding, ding that you hear. Those always remain in place.
Thank you, Mr. Roberts. Anyone else? I'll entertain a motion adjournment.
You got it.
All right, thank you very much, committee.